Are you recording, Erin?
Good afternoon. I'm so happy to be here with you this evening. I'm glad that you took the time to tune in to this first webinar in our Pint-sized series of science that follows the professional training that you did receive this summer. My name is Laurie Parker. I was hired at the Science Center in July as the Education Specialist for Early Childhood. I have the great honor of working with Jolie Pelz, who is our Director of Innovative Science Learning, and she's here with me tonight manning the chat room. So if you have a question or a comment, we do welcome you to log in and to let her know what any questions or comments are that you may have about what we're going to talk about tonight. The first of the webinars, of course, is happening right now. On your screen, you should be able to see the remaining 3 webinars. The last one that is scheduled for December 20th, there was a typo in the information that was sent out in the email. It said Tuesday, December 20th, and one of you great teachers caught it and alerted me to it. So I've corrected that. So now we're going to meet again on November 8th, December 6th, and December 20th for the remaining 3 webinars. As we go through this evening tonight together, I want you to be thinking about what you learned in training. We're going to show some of the very same slides that we saw this summer in training, and just to kind of refresh your memory about what the purpose of Pint-sized science is, what the foundational model was that we talked about inquiry-based learning, and how to use these things to help your students become the best innovators and creators that you can. Throughout the PowerPoint today, we're going to have a few videos that I have found that talk about these subjects so that you can take notes while we're watching if you want to. If you would like to have the YouTube address, I'll be happy to send that out as well so that you can maybe share that with your colleagues. The first one that we're going to watch is 7 reasons why critical thinking is important. We talked a lot about this at training and how we want to get kids to think on their own and not through something that we are setting up for them. We want them to come up with their own ideas, their own ways of solving problems. And if you remember those question starters, we talked about how critical thinking and problem solving were 2 things left off of that list because we feel that is the main idea behind Pint-sized science and inquiry-based learning. So I would like for you to join me in watching this video about why we are doing what we are doing. And here we go.
7 reasons why critical thinking is important. Hi, in this video, you will learn why critical thinking is important in our everyday lives. Critical thinking is a skill you attain developing your judgments by thinking open-mindedly, logically, and coherently. By becoming a good critical thinker, you become a more independent and self-directed learner. Every person can improve their critical thinking skills, helping them take accurate decisions in their daily life routines at school, university, organization, or simply at home. Here are the 7 reasons why we advise practicing critical thinking skills. 1. Critical thinking encourages independency. Learning how to think critically teaches you to be more independent. You do not rely on others, and you take full ownership of your strengths and weaknesses. This helps you avoid mistakes, improving your judgmental and evaluation skills to a whole new level. 2. Critical thinking improves your self-evaluation. Thinking with reason and making logical justifications helps reflect your own values and decisions in a good way. Critical thinking is considered as an important asset for one's own well-being. 3. Critical thinking promotes good language and presentation skills. By thinking critically, you can present your thoughts in an organized manner. Analyzing your data logically helps you express your idea more effectively. 4. Critical thinking encourages creativity and innovation. By thinking out of the box, you come up with new ideas and creative solutions, allowing you to explore alternative options. As opposed to narrow thinking, critical thinking frees your mind and motivates you to understand other situations around you. 5. Critical thinking encourages good decision making. Being a good, systematic, and logical thinker allows you to coherently outline possible solutions to your problems. By doing that, you can then easily visualize the best of these solutions and thus apply it accordingly. 6. Critical thinking encourages scientific discoveries and theories. Science involves theory creation. However, in order to confirm these scientific theories, both experimentation and reason are necessary. So critical thinking is and will always be one of the main foundations of science. 7. Critical thinking keeps us up to date with our 21st century economy. As you already know, our economy today is based on information and technology. It is changing quickly and effectively. Analyzing information and solving problems systematically helps us adapt to this fast-changing workplace. So as explained, it is vital to possess good critical thinking skills full of reason and logic. Learning how to master thinking analytically and systematically is considered a valuable asset for any career.
All right, so now we're going to get into your materials. I know you're all very eager to see what you're going to be getting in the next few weeks. And so we've got some slides here of some pictures. We actually have some totes here as well. But we're going to go through and I'm going to show you what some of your materials look like and how we're going to look at them is by grouping. So whatever grouping you get, we're going to look at them a little bit tonight. Something that you'll see on the screen is the plastic tote that your materials are going to come in. When you receive these, they're going to have your Science Sprouts kit plus the 3 kits that you chose. So a word of caution, these are extremely heavy. They're weighing anywhere between 40 and 60 pounds. So when you get it, please, please, please find a friend, a colleague, a spouse, a child that's grown and able to do it to come and help you move it to your room, because I don't want anybody to have a pulled back muscle because of lifting this. So inside of your tote, you're going to have an inventory sheet, and it's going to have the materials that are in the Science Sprouts kit plus the 3 that you chose. We would like for you to take this inventory list and do a check about the items that are in your tote to let us know if you're missing something. Later on in this webinar, we're going to look at each kit briefly, and I'm going to let you know what the names of some of the materials are. You may not have had any previous experience with it, so it will help you to know whether or not you have it in your material if you know the name of it. And that's what we'll do a little bit later. When you get your inventory sheet completed, if you find that there are missing items, you can just send me an email and let me know what is missing, and we will get those out to you just as soon as possible. The next thing that you're going to have with your series of materials are some investigation cards. And I brought a grouping from last year to show you, and they're going to look like this. So the cards will have some icons on each activity to let you know what safety plans you need to follow, and then what setting plans that you can do. So some of the things you can do outside or inside. Some can be done in small group or large group. Some, as you see over on this side, have icons where the teacher may need to be present. You may need to wear your safety goggles or lab coats because of potential spilling, and you don't want your children to be, going home with chemical goo gunk all over them. So the cards are there for you to use with your materials. I wanted to show you specifically, if you got the colorful chemistry set, a card that we had made for last year was called the water jelly crystals. And you get quite a good bunch of water jelly crystals. And on this card, you're going to have a section that says what materials you're going to need, whether you need to do anything in preparation beforehand to get this ready for the kids to experiment with. What kinds of safety ideas are there, and what kind of setting might be best for this particular investigation. And then we give you some general questions you can ask, some flow to the activity, and you can bounce off of this as much as you need to, or you can just take the item, give a brief reading of this card, and then come up with your own experimentation and investigation with your students. On the back side of the card will be a little bit of background science for you. We're not all chemists, we're not all physicists, we're not engineers. We as teachers know a little bit about a lot of things. So Jolie, because she is super duper at explaining things, she's written up a background science paragraph for you. Now this is for you to increase your learning as an adult and as a long-time learner, but you can also share some of this material with your students. If they have questions about why does that do that? When is it going to happen? What makes that happen? This background science is meant for you to maybe answer some of those questions that you may not automatically know the answer to. So you're going to get a set of investigation cards for each kit that you chose. They will be coming. We are waiting on them to come back from the graphic design artist, and as soon as they're here, we will send them along. They may not be ready on time for us to send out your materials, but they will be short on the heels of your materials. The way we want you to use your materials initially is to just look at them and begin to wonder all of the things that you might have your students do with these materials. Because again, as I told some of you in summer training, I didn't get to see all of you because of the time that I was hired, but some of you, we discussed about how the activities are going to be a guideline. They're not a lesson plan. They're not to be done in the way that we've written it. It's just a guide. So use that as such, and then bounce off of it and come up with other ways that you can use these materials. Something on the cards also, we've tried to designate what is good for a seedling level student and what is good for a sprout level student, and how you may adjust the activity for whatever level of student that you are teaching. If you remember, the sprouts are those early learners. They may not have a lot of experience with inquiry-based learning. They may not know how to ask questions. They may not know what it means to be curious or to wonder, and they may not know how to state that to you. Or it could be used for older students who may be beginning a new unit and they have not a lot of foundational experience or knowledge about that concept. So you can start out at a sprout level and move up to the seedling level. If you are in a group of students who you feel are seedling level students, you'll remember these are those level students that are, reaching for those Iowa core standards and are trying to begin to formulate more ideas, more concepts, and build on the knowledge that they already have. So on your card, you'll have an explanation of how to adjust that particular activity for whichever grade you're teaching. So if you remember as well from this summer's training, you'll remember we talked about 3 levels of inquiry-based learning. So as you're going through the activities, you can consider, would this be a structured activity? Would it be something that I could do as a guided activity? Or is it completely open? Can I just let the kids run with it, see what they discover, and talk about that as they go along? If you remember the structure, that's usually when teacher is directing what is going on. But this can be very beneficial to students who are developing skills. They may not know what it is they are to do with the materials. They may not know what they can learn from it. So guided, or to structure it, is a good way to start with that particular concept. And then going into guided inquiry-based learning. If you remember the ball investigation that we did during training, this would be an example of guided training. We provided you with the thought of, what does the properties of a ball have to do with the bounds of the ball? And we gave you that provocation, and then you as groups went together, you figured out your own investigation, and reported the data on what you discovered. So guided learning is a good way to sit back, interject what needs to be told to the students, but pretty much letting them guide their own learning. And then, of course, the open level is for them to direct their own learning, and it can be so impactful for what they do, how they do it, what they think, how to problem solve, and how to do some of that critical thinking that our earlier video talked about. This is our framework model that we talked about in our summer sessions. And as you are opening up your materials and you're looking at them and experimenting with them, begin thinking about, how can I use this material to reach that harvest level? You may use it for that seed level where you're going to just let kids experiment with it and see what they find out. And then you would, of course, want to water that investigation to where they are asking questions and you're able to use the investigation to help them come up with an answer. Then to grow it, to analyze that data, to figure out what it is that we know, what are we going to do with that knowledge, and how are we going to build that into the next investigation that we have. And then blossoming is the conclusion of your investigation, and of course the harvest would be reporting those results. So using the materials, we would like for you to always strive for that harvest level, but begin with a good seed planted so that kids are going to be excited and start asking and wondering with the materials that you're providing. So if you remember, we were able to look at just one item out of each kit this summer, and the foundational kit that you're all going to receive is the Science Sprouts kit. In a little while, after we've done some more reviewing of the alternative kits, we're going to take a look at more of those Science Sprouts materials, and we will be able to answer any additional questions that you may have about that, and we will be able to show you all of the materials that will come with that. So we want you to look at the modules that we sent to you in picture form through an email earlier. And now we're going to just take each module by itself, and I'm just going to name some of the materials that are going to come in this kit. So if you see, we're going to start with your Classifying Creatures kit. You are going to be getting a Ziploc bag full of partial pelts from real animals. And on the back, if you remember, this is one that we brought to summer training, there's a number on the back of each pelt. When you want to use these pelts, you can go on the Science Center resource page, and we'll let you know how to get on that. And you can print out a resource paper that will correspond to each pelt that comes in your bag of pelts. With that, you're also going to receive a turkey feather that comes from a real turkey. And the point of this is to talk to kids about why are the individual spikes on a feather so close together. Some birds may have very wispy feathers. What does this feather do that a wispy feather won't do? Or what would this feather do, and what kind of habitat does a turkey live in that would require this kind of a feather? So you'll get those for kids to touch and explore, because most children don't have that opportunity. You're also going to get a box that contains 10 magnifying glasses on lanyards. These do have the easy pull apart clasp, So if they do get caught on a bush outside or something, they will come apart quite easily and will reduce the choking hazard. But you will have 10 of these that you will be able to use in your investigations of outside habitats or inside things that you're going to maybe be looking at more closely. And we do reference these materials on your investigation cards as materials that you will need for that particular investigation. You'll get 2 of these bug boxes. They are really quite cute. They come apart, if I can get it apart. And there is a magnifying glass on the top. Okay, there's got to be an easy way to get this apart.
I'm going to step in and help
It's
you.
child-proof or adult-proof, maybe.
Yep. So there's a button.
Oh, there is a button.
And
there.
then you open it.
There you go.
And then what's great is there's a magnifying glass. So if you have a friend, let's say that you've captured and you would like to do some investigation too, you can put that friend here, right inside,
Yes.
and then you can put the lid on it, and then you can look at it through the magnification on the top.
Very cool. Then, as part of your kit as well, you're going to get 4 bugs in acrylic. Now, if you have a colleague across the hall that's getting this kit, she may have different bugs, which would be great because then you can mix and match and have a better selection for kids to investigate. But these are also very good to use your magnifying glasses on to be able to see details about the individual bugs that you receive in your kit. 2 books I believe we had at training this summer was What If I Have Animal Hair and What If I Had Animal Feet? And it's just a way for children to learn about, okay, cheetahs have fast feet. And what would I need to do to be a cheetah? And what if my feet were that fast? And the kids can imagine themselves being these different animals. And then you can talk about why each animal has the kind of feet that it has. The same it goes with the fur or the hair that an animal would have. And this child has porcupines sticks on her head because that animal needs it for protection. And you'll learn about all of those different animals in this book. The last thing that you'll have, and I believe we had these at training too, I just don't think that we opened them up. You're going to get a set of cast animal bites. So these actually came from real animals. These are not real teeth, but they were molded from real animal mouths. And you can talk with kids about pointed teeth and flat teeth, and what kind of animal needs a certain kind of teeth based on the kind of food that it eats or the habitat that it lives in, and why would that particular jaw structure not work in a different habitat. It does come with a lesson plan handout that you can read through and maybe pull some other ideas out of for investigation with your animal bites. And then the other thing that comes are some animal x-rays and their corresponding animal. So your animal x-ray would look like this, of course, and then you have the animal that it goes with. Now here is a difference between sprouts and seedlings. Sprouts, because they don't know a lot of foundational knowledge about different animals, you may just have them match the x-ray to the animal that it goes with. And ask them, why do you think that x-ray is the one that goes with that animal? What does the x-ray and the animal have in common? That you know those two go together. Seedling level students might be able to group the x-rays by characteristics, 4 feet, 2 feet, tails, sharp teeth, flat teeth. Whatever you can, whatever the kids want to do with these is open-ended. We just are providing the x-rays and the pictures. If you happen to know a veterinarian who could give you more, I think that would be a great addition to this kit, because then you can have a bigger variety for kids to explore. We do have some really good activities with this grouping on your activity cards that will be coming to you, but these are just a few of the items, or these are the items that is going to come in your Classifying Creatures kit. So when you get your box, you'll know exactly then what these are called. All right, so next we're going to then look at the bits and bots. Now, I know at the trainings I was doing this summer, a lot of you had a lot of fun programming the blue bots, and at one or two trainings you really got into doing the robot turtles game. And I would advise, based on my observation of using the turtles game, it would be a good idea to open it up before you want the kids to play with it, because it can be kind of challenging to be able to know exactly how the game is played. But you'll get a robot turtle game, and it's specially designed for beginning programming, just like the blue bots are. It is a board game that has different cards that you will play the game with, and then you'll have some little robotic turtles that come with it. And I would, as I said, I would suggest that you take a look at this before, just so that you have a good handle on how the game should go. And then, of course, we had the blue bots at our trainings this summer, and the command cards. So you'll get 2 blue bots and the command cards. And if you're new to programming, again, you might want to play around with this for a while and kind of get a good handle on how these blue bots work, how you code them, and how to set it up so that kids can be successful and be able to learn some beginning coding. Another thing that you're going to get are the 6 cubelets. On the box, it shows you the 6 squares that you get in this set. And this is, again, a beginning coding, building circuitry kind of thing. Okay. And this is going to be able to teach kids that when you put certain things together, you get a different result. And the cubelets, again, it would be a good idea if you're not technologically advanced, that you play around with these as well. The box comes with some command bots. Let me pull these out here. So this is what they look like. And they come apart, but they do fit together in circuits. And so however you put these circuits together is going to determine what your cubelets will do. You do have some lights that will come on if you set the circuit up in a certain way. They'll go off if you set the circuit up in a certain way. They might blink if you set it up in a certain way. So experimenting with these, again, if you're not familiar with them or you've not had any exposure to that, would be a great way for you to feel comfortable about beginning coding as before you have your students jump in and try to do it. So that is your cubelets pack. The 2 books that come with this series we had at the training, and you have how to build, or how to code a sandcastle. And it is kind of a book that you would probably want to read through before you read it to the kids. It gives you a problem, and then it talks about possible solutions. And so to be able to answer the children's questions a little bit quicker maybe, go ahead and familiarize yourself with the book and kind of have some pre-thought about how you're going to present it. And do you want to dissect it as a problem? Do each problem individually? Do you want to read it as a storybook first and then start on the problems? But it's again a good way to start children in beginning coding. And then one of my favorite books from this series is Grace Hopper, and she was queen of the computer code. And I know the people that I did training with, I talked a little bit about how Grace Hopper was the first person, and let alone the first woman, that figured out how to write code in words as opposed to zeros and ones. And it's a fascinating nonfiction book, but it does present itself in kind of animated ways. So I think kids will enjoy listening to it. It's a good story. It talks about her failures, and as we talked about that in training, not all successes happen. You have to go through a little rough patch now and then to be able to reach your end goal. So that is the Bits and Bots kit. So if you signed up for that, that is what you can expect in your tote that's coming. All right, Colorful Chemistry is our next one. Colorful Chemistry has a lot of stuff. Not big stuff, but a lot of stuff. Because the basic idea with Colorful Chemistry is to get kids to use everyday items and figure out what their chemical makeups are and how they react when put together. So one of the things you're going to get is a set of 4 test tubes, and they each have their own holder. So some of our investigations that you'll get on the cards, you might be able to do in the test tubes if it holds enough of the liquid that is required. The other thing that you'll get is a box of goo worms or Insta worms. And we have a fascinating activity for this. They really look like paint bottles. And the activity will have you make a saltwater solution and pour this in. And I'm not going to spoil it about what will happen, but a great chemical reaction happens. And the kids are going to be fascinated because it's instantaneous. You'll see exactly what happens the minute the 2 solutions meet. So the box also comes with some other ideas that you can use beyond the idea that we are providing to you on the cards. Then some of the other chemically based items that you're going to get. Here are those water jelly crystals that I told you about when I showed you the cards earlier. These are safe, they're non-toxic. You're not going to, the kids are not going to hurt themselves by handling them, but I would caution they should not go in their mouth, just because we don't want kids to get used to eating scientific materials, because sometimes they're not safe. But we have a really fascinating water jelly crystal activity. Actually, I think we have 2 or 3 on these because they're so versatile that you can use them for a lot of different activities. These are a package of water fizzer tablets, and they come in different colors. And they kind of do what the name says. You put them in solution and they fizz. But water isn't the only liquid that you can put them in. Again, kids can come up with other ways that they can add these color fizzing tablets to other liquids and find out what different reactions that you have when you're using different liquids. Some of the everyday items that you're going to get is an ice cube tray. We have a lot of activities that center around using ice cubes. We talk in some of the activity cards about reversing states of matter. Does everything change, and can you always change it back to its original state? Ice cubes are a great way to do that, and so we provided an ice cube tray. Those of you at training that did the Alka-Seltzer rockets, here are your Alka-Seltzer tablets. Again, I told you at training you're going to get your film canisters to do those Alka-Seltzer rockets. You're going to get some just plastic bowls. These you can use for several different of the activities and investigations. We provided you just a few for you to get started. This could be one of those things that you might need to replace from time to time. You'll get a saucepan with a lid, and with this saucepan you'll get a hot plate. Again, on some of the activity cards we make you cognizant of the fact that you do need to make sure you can use a hot plate in your room, and to make sure that the kids are using proper safety techniques when you're doing anything with heat. Food coloring and the powdered milk go together to do one of the investigation cards, and so we've provided those to you. And then you're going to get two pairs of gloves. Now these are adult-sized gloves, but some of your children might be able to use them. Most of the time you'll be using these when you're handling the saucepan and taking it off of the heat source, so that you yourself are protected from any types of burns. The books that you get with this module, Solid Liquids and Gases, this is pretty much geared, I would say, for the sprout level. Not a lot of words on the page, nice illustrations for that idea for that page. And then you would be able to also use this maybe as the starting point for seedlings. JoJo the Wizard Brews Up Solid Liquids and Gases. This book can be used with sprout level students, but I would say it's primarily more appropriate for your seedling level students. It talks a lot about the chemical changes of chocolate and of ice, and it uses the terminology solids, liquids, and gases, and it talks a little bit about which of those are reversible and which of them are not, based on what's happening in the book. Not that you can't read this to sprout level students, but I would primarily use it for seedling level. So that is your colorful chemistry set. And as we said at training, your consumables, which would be primarily the Alka-Seltzer, the food coloring, the milk, the bowls, those would be consumables that when we said we worked that we don't want you to spend more than $50 a year, those would fall into that consumable category. All right, so next we're going to do the engineering module. Okay, and I will help Jolie get everything over here. Okay, all right. So in your engineering model, I think this is one of the heaviest of the modules, and I don't know why. I think maybe it's all of the screws and the instruments that you can use to make your engineering wonders. So in this module, you're going to get a 3-speed fan, because one of the things that you can do to build is using your sail car. This is the sail car kit, and you can use the fan to blow the sail car and do some investigations with how far they go, what kind of changes might need to be made to make it go farther or faster. And so the 3-speed fan is to use in those engineering investigations. You get a Grab Lab kit. So one of the activities is thinking about tools that help us do things. And this Grab Lab will have the kids construct a new tool that can pick things up. So it comes with all of the screws, nuts, bolts, all of the things that the kids are going to need to construct their Grab Lab, and perhaps be able to work together in teams and see what they can come up with. With that, you're going to get, there's a brown box in your tote that's called the Maker Tool Set, and it has tools. It's got a little screwdriver, it has a little hammer, it's got a little, is that a punch, Jolie?
Yep.
That's a punch. Some different types of pliers, and so you can't be a builder or an innovator or a maker if you don't have the right tools. So you have those.
I'm going to chime in for just a second, because what I want to show you is awesome. Is that first of all, these are all child-sized tools, and they are real tools. So they are sturdy. You can use them with confidence. With the students, I love the hammer. It's heavy, but it's definitely something that a small hand could grab and hold. The reamer, as it's called, that Lori was talking about, when you use the pieces like in the Grab Lab, there's holes in these building plates here. You can use the reamer to scoop that out, that hole, to make it a different size for the dowels, for example. So if you put the dowels in there, then you can make it so the dowels could spin. So if you ream it, it'll open it up, loosen it, and then the dowels can spin. If you want the dowels to be in there and be really tight, you don't need to use the reamer. So it allows you to really manipulate the materials so students can build and create things. And you'll use it for the sail car kits too. So in the sail car right here, you're going to get a variety of materials. You get some wheels, dowel rods, and some of those same kind of pieces. So you can use all of those same tools with these components.
Okay. And then your make-dos are another tool set that you can use with cardboard. We had these at training. So these are your little screws, for lack of a better word. It does come with its own tool set to be able to screw them into the cardboard. You get a package of cardboard cutters that are completely safe. If you weren't able to experiment with the engineering materials at training, hopefully there's somebody close by, either in your same school or in your district, that did get them. And I would for sure ask if you can borrow them. So this is entirely meant for a cardboard construction, and you will be able to be amazed at the things that the kids can come up with when they are given their own way of thinking and their own time to build. So those are called make-dos. We also provided you kind of a supplementary set of connectors. So these black rods are connectors. And then we also gave you 4 wooden wheels. So in case somebody wants to build a sail car, but they need extra wheels because of the weight of it or the length of it, we've given you some extra materials. These are just supplementary. They don't necessarily go with any one kit, but you can use them if the children need more materials. You also have a set of 4 gears that can be used in infinite ways with any of these things, or you might even be able to combine them with other gears that you may have in your school to do a big display of gears, or talk about machines that have gears and how those work to keep the machine functioning. The set of books that you get, I do believe we did show at training, but software engineer, electrical engineer, civil engineer, and mechanical engineer. These again are pretty easy reads, life-size pictures, and it talks about how you can use machines to make your work easier. So getting the kids interested in a career is important, because if they have the skills, they may not know where they could use them as they grow. That is another thing that we've added to your activity cards, is we've given you a couple of career ideas that may be kind of unheard of with a particular way of using your materials. So by using these materials, you can get kids interested in some other STEM careers that they may want to follow as they grow. The most magnificent thing we saw at training, and of course, Going Places. Those are 2 wonderful books. So that is your Exploring Engineer module. We're going to go now to a video that I found online. We talked about if you bring art in or agriculture in, you can change the acronym STEM into STEAM. I found this wonderful video where this teacher, and this is a preschool level classroom, that is taking the story of the three little pigs, and she is teaching engineering with the three little pigs. So give me just a moment and I will get over to our link. From training, I am not technologically advanced. Jolie, you want to see if you can help me here? Okay. There we go. And you'll see this teacher uses guided instruction during her lesson. All right, so let's see now if I got this.
Young children are natural scientists, curious about the world around them and readily inclined to discover new things. While many of us think about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, as learning that begins in elementary school, the foundation for STEM thinking and STEM processes can be nurtured and developed well before children enter kindergarten.
How will we get some more Play-Doh?
Maybe you can take some Play-Doh from the bottom to use for the top.
When we think about introducing STEM in early childhood, it is not about setting aside an extra segment of time to address STEM topics, when the day is already packed full of activities. Instead, the goal is to integrate STEM processes into the daily routine and into one's early childhood curriculum.
These are not strong enough. We can fix the colors.
Well, how do you think you can get them to stay up, Noah?
Play-Doh.
The introduction of STEM thinking is about giving young children opportunities for active, hands-on exploration and experimentation, and building their critical thinking, prediction, and problem-solving skills. Educators need not be STEM experts to offer learning experiences that pique young children's curiosity and nurture their penchant for discovery.
Yes? All right, who knows the story of the Olympics? Do you guys like this one? Yeah, that's a pretty fun book, right?
Early childhood educators can use books, going to the library and choosing a book to enhance their STEM activities. Nearly every children's book you pick up, and if you start reading through it, you'll find some inkling of a STEM experience that you could try with children.
Meanwhile, the third pig remarked, "It's very nice, but I still don't think it's strong enough." So the third little pig searched everywhere. "What can I find that will be better than sticks?" he wondered. What did he use?
Bricks.
Bricks. Do you think that that's a better idea?
Yeah. He's
Yeah,
the
why?
smartest pig.
He's the smartest pig.
Because it's strong.
We read The Three Little Pigs today because it's a really good story about how the building process works and what makes a good house, what are good engineering ideas. So we read that for the kids so that they could kind of jump off of that and decide how they wanted to build their house with what materials. Little pigs, let me in. No, they shouted. What did they say?
Not gonna get attention.
Then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in. Ready? But did that work?
No.
No, so he tried again. In today's activity, we looked at different structures and how they were being built. We also talked about, the structures that the kids live in, what they're made out of: brick, wood, stone. And then we brought it all together in an activity where they could make their own houses and see what materials they would use. So we really did all of this to kind of bring it back to STEM and bring it back to engineering so that the kids could get, their own hands-on experience. What do you think a good house needs?
Bricks.
Bricks? What else do you think it needs?
Stone.
Maybe sand?
The houses are all going to look different. Some of them are going to collapse, but that's part of the scientific method. Sometimes when something fails, it's not a bad thing. You want them to go back and try again, and that's what we really want children to understand, is that if something doesn't work the first time, it's not a big deal. It means we're going to learn a lot more by going back and figuring out what did not work and then making some changes.
Juliana, how do you think we can make these stronger so they don't fall down next time?
I know, we can make some more Play-Doh.
We love having the kids work in teams in our classroom just so that they can build those interpersonal skills and learn how to work together. And it really helps them when they get stuck. They don't know what they're doing or how to build a house. They can ask their friend for advice, or they can see what their friend is doing and kind of build off on that.
What about we all build together? I'm building like this. But I can't open up this blue. I know though.
We just observe them and just watch and ask them open-ended questions, seeing what is their thinking process, because that's really what we want to see. We want to see the process, not the end product. So we want to see how they're thinking through everything.
So do you guys have a roof?
Because
floor?
it has a lot of, it can't even blow down like
And
this.
some doors?
This doesn't. Yeah. And this is door like that. See the balcony. Don't even try to blow
You gotta figure out how to stick it on your house.
When doing an activity like the 3 little pigs, when children have spent a lot of time building a house and they're excited to, look what I made, and they want everybody to see what they've made, they may not want to do the next part, which I found extremely exciting, is to blow it down and see whether it stands. So if a child doesn't want it to be blown down, you leave it. Or you can take photographs of it to allow them to keep a picture of their house. Respect the children's wishes.
So the big bad wolf said, I'll huff, and I'll huff, and I'll blow your house down. Try to blow it down. Did it fall over?
Minimize. Oh. Okay, you're gonna have to go back. Okay. And then go back to your
Presentation. Okay. Thank you. All right. All right. So I hope that you enjoyed that video. I thought it was a great demonstration of guided instruction, of open-ended questioning, of letting kids lead their own play and use their own thinking and how to build their own house. So you can incorporate these concepts. As we said at training, we don't want this to be additional work for you. We want you to take these materials and incorporate it into things that you already do. The next kit that we're going to look at is going to be your Fascinating Farmers Kit. So hopefully you all have received your worm farms by now, and I'm hoping that the children, if you haven't got it in your room already, that's okay, because some of you had told me you weren't going to do that particular unit until later in the year. Do keep them watered with a spritzer and give them food periodically, and they should do fine until you're ready to bring them out for the kids to use. This is your Root View farm. It comes in a big brown box, and the plexiglass is covered with blue tape so that it doesn't get scratched. And there is a set of instructions for how to put it together. It does come with some peat moss circles that you would soak in water to use as your medium, or you could use the Root View soil after you've composted it for a while. You do get some seeds with this that you can get started with as far as growing things in your room. And the cool thing about the Root View farm is you can literally watch the roots and you can see what they do as the plant is growing. So that comes along with your worm farm. You get a Winnie Finn Worm Farmer, which I have fallen in love with this book. It talks about the composting process. It talks about the nutrient cycle. And it's a good child-sized way to incorporate composting ideas into your classroom. Most kids can relate to this book because Winnie Finn is just a typical kid, and it teaches a lot of good things just through using worms. This is a teacher resource that you're going to get in your kit. It's called Worms Eat My Garbage. And it talks a lot, or it talks all the way through about nutrients in composting, why it's important to compost, what you can do with the compost. And so this is just a resource for you to use with your worm farm to keep it healthy for the worms and to be able to have some ideas about what to use that soil for. So with your worm farm kit, that is your Fascinating Farmers.
Can I chime in for a moment?
Yes, you may.
Okay, so something to think about, because we had these worms at the preschool, and you saw, some of you got to see them at the training. Something to think about is, one, you do have to feed them, but what's great is you can feed them scraps. So it could be scraps from the children's lunch or from snacks. Lori and I had an apple the other day. We both each had an apple, and we threw the apple core into our worm farm. And so they're very easy to maintain in that sense. They do move around, and the burlap that comes with it, that fabric, you put over it, one, to help to keep them in there, but two, to help to keep the moisture in there. But your worms will reproduce, and they will grow, and you may need to start a second farm, or you could share them. So maybe at the end of a unit or at some point in time, you could even start another farm, and it could go home with the children to start at home, or it could be another classroom. And what a great opportunity to share your knowledge and information on vermiculture, which is using worms to compost material, that you could use that to help other people to understand how important it is to recycle our nutrients and how worms do that naturally for farmers, and how important that soil composition is. So it is something you have to maintain, and I know that's a little challenging for some teachers, but it's not too difficult. Have your students help you, but be thinking about, like over the summer, what we did for our preschoolers is we talked to their parents, and if the parents were okay, they got to take home a container. So we used like cottage cheese containers with lids on them to send a set of the worms home so that they could start their own composting process at home. So keep that in mind for your plan, and if you have questions about it, please let us know. We can help you. This book will be amazing. This book will give you a lot of those answers that I know many of you are emailing and asking me questions about. You can also ask Uncle Jim. So the company that you got the worms from, you're always welcome to contact them to ask them just general resource questions. But we're excited about the worms, so let us know how it goes. Let us see some of the fun stories, pictures, and exciting things you're doing with your worms.
Very good.
Thanks, Lori.
And they will escape. We have had some emails that they're trying to get out. So if you need to buy a taller container than the one that you got with your kit, by all means, buy a taller container, and then maybe they won't try to escape as much. With the leaflet that came with the worms, you did see that they can drown. So it is really important to kind of monitor how much water they get. I think the leaflet that came with your worm farm says that you want it to be loose, but you need to be able to feel the water in that. So use that leaflet that came with your worm farm as your resource guide about how to water, when to water. And again, let Uncle Jim's know if you have other questions, because they're the experts. They're the ones that give those to us to give to you. So then, the next one we're going to talk about is our Homes and Habitats module. So if you received, Homes and Habitats, the thinking behind Homes and Habitats is to expose children to a wide range of knowledge about animals that are in their immediate area and some that may live across the world. The books that you get with this unit are pretty much, I would say, spot on for sprouts. They might even be too easy for sprouts. They're very simple, but they're a good springboard for the seedling levels, because they can talk about similarities and differences and what they see and as far as the habitat that they live in. So you get 5 different books, all about a different habitat. You're going to get a GoPro so that you can record what's going on in habitats around your school. And it also comes with an SD card that you can record. The SD card is kind of limited on how much video you can take, but you can take pictures, and it does have a fair amount of memory for pictures. If you're going to do video, I would say be real choosy about how long you want your video to be, just so that you have memory on your card. You will get 10 packages of Model Magic. So if you remember from training, that harvest level on our framework model talked about student work. So they could use the Model Magic to create a habitat. If it's something that they see outside, or something they've done research on, or something that they've seen on a vacation or at grandma's house or their own backyard, you can have them use the Model Magic to construct a similar type of habitat. You can't be a very good observational person if you don't have some binoculars. So you're going to get 5 pair of child-sized binoculars. These have amazing clarity, and you can use these on walks. I wish we could give you enough for all of your students to have, and perhaps maybe that is something that you would like to talk to your administration about obtaining some more. We talk a little bit in your investigation cards about looking up in a tree to see what's up there. If they spot any nests, if they see any insects in the bark, do they see anything on the ground under the tree? And because our naked eye doesn't see detail like a binocular or a magnifying glass does, we provide you some of the binoculars for your children to use. Then again, in that student work, we've provided you with a low-temp hot glue gun. Maybe the children want to use found materials in the room or brought from home, and they may want to construct a habitat rendering for something that they've read about, done research on, watched a video on. And so we gave you a starter set of glue sticks. But again, that might be one of those consumables that you may have to replace, especially if the kids get real excited about it. And that would be something that, you know, you would have to maybe do some instruction on. A little bit of glue is going to go a long way to make your glue sticks last a little longer. So that is the Homes and Habitats kit.
Okay,
and
I'm going to jump in again, and I
yes,
don't need to keep
no.
Lori about this.
No, you go right ahead.
But I just want to share with you a little information about the GoPro, okay? Because when we first started doing the training, we didn't necessarily have this exact GoPro at the beginning, so some of you saw a different version of this. What's really great about this GoPro is it has a screen on the back, so you can see the pictures and videos as you are taking them. The other thing is that it syncs itself. When you turn it on, you can sync it to a phone or an iPad or any other kind of tablet, Bluetooth kind of device, so that you can remotely see what is happening through the camera. You don't have to do that. You don't have to have an iPad or a phone to do it. You can take it directly using the camera. There is a wire or a cord, so you can plug the camera into your computer or an iPad or something, and you can download the pictures. Otherwise, what you can do is the card that you have, the SD card, it's a micro SD card. There's an SD card adapter right here, and you can put the micro SD card into that adapter, and then if your computer has an SD card slot, you can put it in there and download the pictures as well. Okay, so you can look at the pictures from the camera itself. You can look at the pictures through a Bluetooth connection between a device and the camera. You can plug in a cord to your computer like a laptop and look at it that way, or you can take it through here through the SD card and look at it in that way as well. And GoPro is awesome if you go to their website or talk to them about how to set it up. But you can contact Lori and I too. We can help you. So when you get it and you're like, how do I get this going and set up, just let us know. But it's a very user-friendly. And remember, it's a GoPro. It's okay. It's okay for your kids to take it outside. It's okay if it ends up in the puddle. It's okay if it's raining. It's okay if it's snow. It's okay if they drop it. This isn't your iPad camera. It's meant for this, okay? So use it for that. Put it underground. Dig a hole. Stick it underground and see what's coming in there. What's coming in that habitat. If you want to put it in the dumpster, if you want to put it in the garbage and see who's coming to see that. it can handle that, okay? So I'm super excited to see all the amazing stuff that you guys are gonna find out and investigate using the GoPro camera.
Exactly. And please share.
Yeah.
Please share. We love to see what you guys come up with, what your students come up with. We had a wonderful email the other day from a participant that they got their worm farm, and Grandpa brought his grandson into school, and he said, "Oh, bluegills like to eat those worms." And then another child chimed in, and he said, "Well, I like to eat bluegills." And so it was a wonderful, informal conversation about a food chain. And that is what we hope that you experience with your children, that you're able to share some of that stuff with us so that we can share it with other participants in the months and years to come. The next one that we're going to talk about, and I want you to know we're doing just kind of a real quick review of these right now, just so you can do your inventory. Later in the following webinars, we're going to dissect these kits a little bit more detailed, and we're going to let you see some of the activities, and we're going to show you how they work, different ideas that you can use. But today, we just wanted you to know what you're getting so that when that inventory list is in front of you, you're not having to look at them and try to see what kind of a name you have on your materials, and you can do your checklist a little faster. So this is mini meteorology, all about the weather. So you're going to get a rain gauge. It does have a bracket that you can put on a fence post or a tree or somewhere that the kids maybe want to watch during a rainstorm. Lots of different ways you can use measuring with this. You can do lots of investigations about the water cycle. The rain's here. If you leave it there for a few days, how does the water evaporate? Where does it go, first of all? Might be a question the kids ask. And then you can talk about evaporation, and that it's in the sky, the clouds form, it rains again, and then you can do a real cool experimentation discussion about the rain cycle. So you'll get a rain gauge. You're going to get the anemometer, which I believe we had it at training this summer, that you can do all types of weather or wind investigations for. So there's a set of instructions on how to put this together on its stand and some ideas of how to use the anemometer. We do have an activity card that you will get to use with some investigation about the wind. This is your UV detector, and we have activities for you to use this with. Basically, you're going to talk with kids. There's a strip of paper inside that will register what the level of UV rays are depending on where you place it. You can do lots of comparisons between shade and sun, partial sun, and you can have kids start collecting data long term based on where they put their UV detector. This solar tube, if you weren't able to open it up and play with it, I apologize. The last couple of trainings that I facilitated, they asked if they could, and I said sure. Those teachers were giggling and laughing and learning so much with this solar tube. What it is a long black pocket. The material feels like a thin garbage bag, and it's sewed on the end or fused on the end. You let it fill up with air, and it's quite long, so you would make sure that you have it in a pretty open space so it doesn't get snagged with bushes or tree limbs. And then you watch what happens. Because it's black, it's going to absorb the heat from the sun. And that solar tube is going to do some really inventive things based on wind, based on how hot it is outside. And I would encourage you, and I believe even in our investigation card, we say, take it out at different times of the year. When there's sun, when there's not sun. When it's summer, spring, fall, winter, when it's raining. And see if you get the same reaction for the solar tube during all of those different weather situations. You will have to find, if you can fold this up and get it back in the envelope, kudos. You may have to find a way to store it after you get it out, because it is quite large. And so you may want to give it its own tote, because folding it, I think, is going to be a nightmare after you open it up. You're going to get a set of 3 tornado tubes that you will need, as you see on the picture. You're going to need a couple of soda bottles, because we don't supply those in your kit. But a lot of observation can be done safely on cyclones and tornadoes with the kids just using water. And you can put food coloring in there so that they can really get an idea of what the vortex looks like. We have some activities that you can use these with as well. When I was a preschool teacher, I had them out on the science table all the time. The kids never got tired of it. They felt like it was just something to watch and observe, and sometimes it went fast, sometimes it didn't go so fast, and we talked about why. So you get 3 of those so that you can let more than one child have that. You're going to get an envelope, and on the front it's going to say polarizing filter, or polarized lenses or filters. And this is what they look like. They're just little black squares of hard plastic, and you use them with light and being able to see the differences of when light is shining through one of these as opposed to when it's not. And we do have activity cards for these. You get 4 of them. And so when you get your envelope, you should have 4. And when we get deeper in the upcoming webinars about mini meteorology, we'll talk to you more about how to use your polarizing filters. I just wanted you to know what they were. You'll get a package of nature print paper. And this can go into that art part of STEAM. The paper absorbs light. You could lay some objects on the paper outside, and then the paper will fade around the objects, and then you'll get the imprint of the object that you lay down on it. Again, we have a lot of other activities for you to use, but that is what this is called, is nature print paper. You'll get your Pocket Lab. It'll come in a little orange storage container that is also Bluetooth. You can Bluetooth enable it to your iPad or phone. Don't have to, but because it can be plugged in as well. There are cards here that come with it that you can use for some more ideas about how to use it, what kind of information it will collect. You'll have What's the Weather book, which is very appropriate for sprouts. Again, it could be used for a jumping point for seedling investigations. It does talk about all the different kinds of weather. And kids can talk about the different dress for the different types of weather. But then also with that, you're going to get a series of 4 books that are they're individual, different types of weather. Sorry, that one's upside down. Different types of weather that you can talk with your kids collectively about, or you can do them as individual units. And I believe we have reached that. So those are your items. So if you chose mini meteorology, when you're doing your inventory list, that's what you're going to be checking off when you open up your tote. Again, just a quick review of what's going to be in there. We'll get deeper into the use of these materials later. Oh, sorry, we got push and pull. I forgot about push and pull. All right, push and pull. The premise of this module is to talk about force and how you can use different items to either make something move faster, slower, whatever it might be. You're going to get a collection of different balls. So a tennis ball, there's some wiffle balls, there's a golf ball, and some foam golf balls. Because with your accessory kit for your ramps, you're going to get all kinds of things that can go down your ramps. So you have 2 cars, there's 2 rings, there's 2 baseballs, And then we wanted to show you a little bit about what the ramp box looks like. This is going to come separately from your totes because it won't fit. So in here, you're going to have a collection of different textures that you can put on your ramp to change the way an item goes down that ramp. A good way to compare data and to be able to have kids experiment with different textures. So these are your ramps. Somebody asked at training, are they wider than other ramps that they've gotten with previous kits? So you can see how wide this ramp is, and the car itself has plenty of room to go up and down the ramp. So if you have other cars in your room or you have bigger balls that the kids want to use, this will accommodate them quite well. In the box, there is another smaller box that is actually the stands for the ramps, so that you can hook it on the ramp onto the stand, and then it can be freestanding. The kids aren't responsible for trying to balance it off the edge of a desk or a chair or something like that. So that is your ramps. And again, the ramps themselves will come separately. This will come in your material. So this is the accessory kit for the ramps. And then at training, we had your 60 cc syringes with the plastic tubing, and then you'll get 3 of the 10 cc's. And again, we're talking about force, air force, water force, and how much do you have to push and struggle against to get air or water to move through this apparatus. You're going to get 2 bar magnets, or not bar magnets.
They're just magnet wands. There's
magnet wands. That's the word I was looking for. Sorry. And then you're going to get 2 magnetic kits. So this one is in a white box, and if I don't want to tip it too far because they'll come all out. But you see that you're going to get a selection of different kinds of magnets. There are car shapes. There's circle magnets. There's a ruler for measuring. You get some more wand magnets, some people magnets that they can sit in the car. And so lots of investigation. And again, it comes with an instruction book, and you can have all kinds of investigations. It also does come under the ruler with 2 of the containers that have iron filings, so that the kids can watch what attracts to magnets and what doesn't. That's always a question my students always had, was why does it stick to one thing and it doesn't stick to another? Jolie created some really good background knowledge on this on your activity card, and we don't want you to get so much into what magnets do, but how do magnets affect the push-pull of an item? So don't really, if the kids go there, then yes, we would need to answer those questions. But the background for this kit is, how do those magnets make a force to push or pull? The other magnetic kit that you get is in a little brown box, and it has some circle magnets, it has some wands. You can put these pegs into a foundation, and the kids can stack the magnets on those pegs and kind of experiment with, why does that push away from the magnet that's already on there, or why does it attract to the magnet that's already on there. So a lot of investigation for this. This is called Mag Match, this kit is, and I believe we just put down that this is just your magnetic kit. So Mag Match is in the little brown box. And I think it even says it on the box, so in case you forget. The book that comes with this series, we had at training, it's called Motion. Again, very appropriate for sprout level, but seedling levels can learn a lot from this book too, because it talks about everyday things. Being in a car, watching things go by on the outside, being on a bus, watching things go by on the outside. So that is your push and pull kit. Again, we put magnets in there, but we want you to really have kids figure out why they make things pull or push. Then the last one that we're going to go through before we get into your Science Sprouts kit is Tiny Tinkers. Tiny Tinkers is a fun kit. It comes with a lot of manipulatives for kids to explore. We put a lot of things in here that have to do with sound waves and light waves. So again, depending on your level of students, will depend on how far you go into that discussion. We'll start with the books here because we have this one at training, the Too Much Glue book, a really good story book about being very curious and wondering why in the world he's all covered in glue. The light is all around us and the sound is all around us. Those books are very much appropriate for Sprout level students. Again, Seedling level students can learn concepts and terminology from them. Your teacher resource in this kit is called Making and Tinkering, and this is a book published by NACCE. The inside of it is just full of different ways to build things and experiment with them, to figure out why something works and why something doesn't work, or how you can get it to work better. So Making and Tinkering is a teacher resource, but you're going to get lots of good ideas about how to help kids tinker and to do purposeful work with the materials that you're going to be getting. The first item that you're going to get is some colored cellophane paper. Again, this is where you might investigate light and using different colors to make different light come through it. A wide array, they're big sheets of paper. You can cut them into any shape, size that you want. And again, we'll talk more about how to use these when we talk about tinkering later. You're going to get 5 non-breakable mirrors. They are covered with a protective sheet. Again, how does light and mirrors work together? What can you do with a mirror to diffract or change the way a light stream is coming into the room? This big bag of materials are called boom whackers. And again, we're going to do some deeper instruction about how to use these. But this talks about sound. And as you see, they're all different lengths. So kids can experiment with the length of tube and the sound that it makes. Basically, they're just going to be hitting it on their thigh, their hand, on a table, on the floor, and see if it makes a different sound on any surface that they choose to use it on. So those are the boom whackers, and again, we'll talk a little bit more about that at a later date. You're going to get 2 of these. These are called sound tubes, and you can have kids swirl them around, and it'll make a sound. Faster makes a different sound than if you twirl it slower. Again, we've got some activities to use with these, and so it's got a purpose, and we're going to help you figure out that purpose. This bag of materials is called a palm pipe, and if you look on the back, the instruction manual is right there, and it shows that if you hold it and you hit it with something, does it make a different sound than if you hold it on the end and you tap it? So a lot like the boom whackers, you can do a lot of things with the palm pipes. It does come with an instruction book for some other ideas. And again, there are various lengths that's going to cause different sounds. You're going to get a set of 10 mini flashlights. And I will tell you, if you get your materials before your activity cards and you push the on button, it's not going to work. Take the top of it off where the magnet is, and there's a little covering so that the battery doesn't wear out. Take it off, and then you put it back together, and then the light will come on. But again, this can be used with the cellophane sheets, it can be used with the mirrors, it can be used with whatever they learn in the book about light, or they can come up with their own investigation. Something that you can do with just some household products, you're going to get a box of cling wrap, a box of parchment paper, a box of aluminum foil, which might seem kind of strange for science. But when my students, my first grade students, I use these 3 products to teach transparency, opaque, and reflection. So of course the parchment would be the opaque. Light goes through it, but it doesn't go through it clearly. The cling wrap you could use as a way to teach translucence. And then of course the aluminum foil is going to reflect the light. So you could use your flashlights to do a series of investigations about what those 3 terms mean. The little white box that you have is a set of tuning forks. Again, using this for what does sound do. The cool thing about the tuning forks is that the kids can observe the sound vibration. So there's 4 different sizes in your box. And again, they're going to make a different sound. They're going to vibrate differently. But this is a visual for kids to get that beginning understanding that sound travels by waves. Light travels by waves. You just can't see them because they're in the air. But the tuning forks are a great way for kids to actually observe the sound waves. So that is your Tiny Tinkers materials. A lot of good stuff. Oh, I'm sorry, he was hiding. You get a set of color paddles that you can also use with your flashlights or with a bigger light source. Different colors that you can use to mix, match, and teach kids about how 2 colors mixed together can turn into a different color. So that is Tiny Tinkers.
There is one more thing that's coming with Tiny Tinkers.
I forgot about that.
And I just put this in the group chat or the chat box. So we have ordered some materials through a company called Strawbees, and it is a cardboard classroom construction kit, and it has all kinds of kind of pieces similar to make-dos, but a little bit different for creating and making things out of cardboard and other recyclable materials. They have been on back order, and they have to be shipped from Sweden. So they are on a ship
somewhere
across the ocean right now. So what we will do is we will send these materials out to you in the next few weeks in the tote. And then when those materials get to us from the Strawbees company, we will package them and turn them around and send them out to you. So there will be one more thing, but it is in very high demand. And if you actually go on their website, you see there's a 3 to 4 week waiting list to even get those materials. And we order them, like I said, directly from the distributor in Sweden. So it just takes us a while to get them. So there'll be more coming. And we'll let you, those of you who selected Tiny Tinkers, will be able to let you know more about that.
Yes. And on back-ordered items, Tiny Tinkers also does have an item called a Thunder Drum that is on order. I've talked with them about 3 times in the last couple of weeks. They cannot tell me where they are. And so I feel bad for you guys. I know you guys are just so excited to get all of these materials. From our perspective, we're trying to get as many things as we can together to send you all at once so that we don't have to do a second shipping and make you wait. But there are some things that we just are not having very good luck getting in a timely manner. So the Thunder Drums will be coming for Tiny Tinkers. The cardboard construction will be coming for Tiny Tinkers. And then with Mini Meteorology, I neglected to tell you that our book that we chose, the Freddie Frogcaster book, is way back ordered. So we're looking at a different title for that. And Jolie and I'll be talking in the day or next couple of days about what to do with that and put a rush order on the book and hopefully get it here before your tote ships in the next few weeks. So the last one that we're going to talk about is your Sprouts kit. We're not going to spend a lot of time about this one because you got to see it at training, but I did want to show you exactly some other things that we did add for the Sprouts. As you know, you're going to get an adult size coat and you're going to get 5 child size coats. We did I did say at training that your coats would be larges, but Jolie was able to get some mediums in. So we gave mediums out, and some of you'll have mediums and some of you'll have larges, unless you specified a specific size, and then we were able to accommodate that. If you are an elementary level teacher, you're going to have 1 small child-size coat, 2 medium child-size coats, and 2 larges. If you're a preschool level teacher, you're going to have 4 smalls and 1 medium. If your adult size coat isn't the right size, send me an email and I will see if we can accommodate a different size. I'm not sure that that can happen, but do let me know if it's just really not working for you, and I will do my dead level best to get you another size. If you remember, you're going to get your 20 pair of child-sized goggles. It might be a good idea to keep these in their own totes so that they're easily accessible. And then you'll have 2 2 adult size for you and an associate that might be in your room. And then, of course, your digital microscope. That does come with its SD card. And as I talk to you, those of you that I was able to talk to at training, you can take a picture and put it in your computer if that's accessible, or you have the ability to do that, and you can put it in and blow up the pictures that the kids are taking of different animals. The measuring tools would be your measuring cups, your beakers, and a tape measure. You'll have 2 stopwatches. You can measure with your 2 metal thermometers. You'll have 2 rulers to measure with. You have a time tracker to measure with. You have a infrared thermometer that you can measure with. That could be used with your mini meteorology kit because of the UV rays and things that might spark in your kids. You'll get a set of 4 batteries. Again, this will be a consumable that you may need to replace at some point. 2 spill trays. Again, like at training, those will come in handy for the rockets. Your foundational book of Ada Twist Scientist, how one child was able to use her curiosity to become scientific in her thinking. Let's see here. So we'll have the digital scale that you might want to use in various ways. The pipettes are just like eyedroppers. Your hot and cold packs, like we saw at training. And then a new addition, we decided to add some balls to your kit for the beginning of a unit or an investigation with your students like we did at training. So some of you, I couldn't throw these away, so some of your balls will come in a tennis ball container and some will come in a Ziploc, especially if you had push and pull. They're all together. So you'll have a golf ball, a tennis ball, 2 foam balls, and 2 wiffle balls. And that can be the beginning of a ball investigation with your students. Do feel free to add other balls as the year goes on. Repetition, as you know, helps kids get better at data collecting and in their way of thinking about how things happen. I hear Jolie over there just typing away, so you guys are evidently having some really good questions. Is there anything that you want to share, Jolie?
No, I'm just giving them little updates about things as we go along. But remember, if you have any questions, to let me know, and I'll do my best to answer those in the chat.
All right. So We're going to talk just very briefly. Some of you were able to hear some information at training about brain development and how that impacts learning. And I know some trainings the time ran out. And we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but it does help to connect what we do to what our brains are doing and what your students' brains are doing. Like in that first video, we want it to be more about the process and not about the end product with these investigations. And so we want to be able to look at what kids are doing and be able to tell whether they're increasing their critical thinking and problem-solving skills. So if you look at this diagram, right in the center, below the blue section, the amygdala and the hippocampus are right there side by side. They touch each other right in the middle of the brain. The amygdala is for emotion and the hippocampus is for memory. And if those two parts of the brain are engaged while you're doing investigations with your children, that information is going to become long-term in their memory. And it's going to be able to create those foundations that we want for building the information as kids go through their training. So your emotional center is really responsible for being able to direct the cognitive learning, and it's when the emotion and the cognition come together, that's what is really going to make everything click for children. It's going to have the learning, the memory, the decision making, and the creativity all together. So we want it to be fun and engaging. We don't want, as we talked in the sessions I facilitated about some of our memories, we're sitting in a desk and reading chapters and taking tests, and we don't want that to be that way for kids these days. We want them to be able to be excited about what they're learning and to be able to feel safe about sharing their ideas and what they feel is a good way for an investigation to go. The emotion, if they're excited about it, it's going to drive their future behavior. They're going to come back to that way of problem solving again and again because they have good memories on that. The last one, the last bullet on this slide just says if learning is impaired, without emotion. You can talk all you want when kids are present, but they're not going to link into it or get hooked into what you're trying to tell them if they don't have an emotional, hopefully positive emotional response. Make sure that you're challenging them appropriately and make sure that they're able to have incremental successes so that they want to stay with their task and be able to challenge themselves as time goes on. And newness is a key in learning. You want to say that you're exposing your kids to new and different ways. You may use the same material out of your kit, but how can you change it up and use it in a different way so that kids can see the variety of ways that instrument or that material can be used? The new facts and concepts come when you're using different materials. We put in a lot, well, I should say Jolie put in a lot of thought into what goes into these kits because we don't want it to just be a cut and paste set of materials that you receive. You can get that pretty much anywhere. Jolie spent a lot of time, even before I was hired on, about what's the best materials to use to get this particular concept across. And so the novelty, I think, is going to be there. So use them in as many different ways as you can. Then rendering, we've already talked about. That's at that harvest level on the framework model where kids are able to show what they know in some form or fashion. And that way it makes it permanent because they're taking what they have learned and they're recreating it in a way that is meaningful to them. So in the next webinar, we're going to be talking about this first group that's highlighted on your slides. That would be the bits and bots, the colorful chemistry, and the tiny tinkers. And we'll talk about those activity cards and some different ways that you can use your materials. That webinar will be on Thursday, November the 8th. Then on Thursday, November the 6th, we're going to talk about the second group of materials. Those are the classifying creatures, the mini meteorologists, and the homes and habitats. And we'll also revisit the inquiry method during that webinar and why it's so important to student learning. And then the last webinar on December 20th, we're going to talk about the third group of modules and the materials they contain. And then we're going to talk about some of those STEM careers that I mentioned and ways that kids can maybe see their future by using the materials that you have received and how to be able to become innovative and creative thinkers. So I want to thank you so much for your attention and your participation tonight. I do want to let you know that the Science Center has already submitted their application to provide pint-sized science next year. I had a really nice email just today about a kindergarten teacher that had seen a friend's pint-sized science materials and was very eager to get them in her classroom. So stay in contact with your hub managers and let them know that you're interested or you know somebody that's interested in attending Pint-Sized Science next year. We will let you know as soon as we know that whether or not we've been granted the opportunity to present Pint-Sized Science again next year. We hope to hear early spring about that decision. And if you know of teachers who would like to participate, you can surely send us their names and also send them to your hub manager. And then as time nears for that sign-up process, they will already be on the list for obtaining the award that you were able to obtain this year. So thank you so much for your attention. We do appreciate your participation not only at the summer session, but here tonight. And do send Jolie and I questions even after this concludes if you think about something tonight or over the weekend, and we'll do our best to get back in touch with you. Thanks so much.
Okay, I don't think so. I think, yeah, there's down to 8 people who are on there now, so. That's fine.